Yay!
Hi. Awesome.
Looks like it's connecting. There's always this moment in
So
the
it's
beginning.
now streaming live on Facebook. So
Hey, we're here live on Facebook. Yay, look at us go. Sometimes it's hard to tell. So, hi everybody. It's Briana of Bliss Your Money, this group that you're in. And I'm super excited to be here with Julie.
hi.
Hi, Julie. So, what?
It's great to be here.
Yay. So Julie is one of my favorite business coaches, especially in the Bay Area. We've been collaborating for years, and she's awesome. And I spoke at her retreat last year when retreats and being in person was still a thing. And so often I'm just really struck by how calming Julie is, how focused, how easy it is to be with her work, and then also how powerful, profound, and transformational Julie's work is and her community. And so I wanted to have her come and talk and share her amazing, like juicy, beautiful wisdom and especially right now about boundaries. So we're going to be talking, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was that Julie and I collaborate, and I love collaborating with Julie, and I'm going to be teaching as part of her Nourished program, and I wanted to make sure that you guys all knew about that. So we'll talk about that as well, and how you can get that action if you want it. So for now, we're just gonna have you like chill out and grab something yummy to drink. I was in my water, and just hang out with us. So I'm gonna tell you who Julie is, and then I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what we're doing today, and then we're just gonna jump right in. Our intention is to go right about half an hour or so. I'm kind of aware that this might run a little bit longer than that, but just to give you a sense of where we're at and what's happening. So Julie Wolk helps high-achieving coaches, consultants, and healers transform a business that drains them to a business that sustains them, which is, I think, like my favorite part is the sustainability piece of like, this is actually a workable, doable thing, that it's not going to suck the life out of you. So she's a firm believer that if we step off of the obsessive productivity hamster wheel and tune into nature's rhythms, we can grow more sustainable lives, businesses, and even a better world. She'll help you slow down, get super aligned, and create better boundaries and solid systems so you can find more ease in your business and feel more nourished financially and energetically. A lifelong nature freak, thanks to my own heart, she has 20 years experience turning vision into reality, plus a chronic illness and a toddler. So she's a total expert in streamlining, strategizing, and finding the simplest path forward, which I think is something that we all like want or say we want, in our businesses. And that is part of being really sustainable. So she facilitates the Nourished Entrepreneur Mastermind, providing coaching online and in nature to women across the country. You can find her at www.juliewolkcoaching.com. Yay! So today we're going to talk about boundaries. Boundaries are what much of what vexes us about money and business. So, and especially right now in this time of like pandemic and revolution, which is like exciting and scary and all of the things, boundaries get harder because everything gets harder. So boundaries that were already set in place can get harder or get changed or dropped. And many of us are just kind of leaking energy everywhere. We're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, we don't take good care of ourselves, and that kind of stuff. So this not only hurts us, but our businesses and those we intend to help. So we're going to get into talking more deeply about boundaries. And if you have questions, we're going to try to get to questions as well, which is a lot to do in half an hour. So, hi, Julie. Let's talk about boundaries.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Briana.
Why don't we start with what is a boundary?
What is a boundary? Such a good question. So on a very simple level, I think of a boundary as something that protects our energy, that protects us from that helps us maintain what we need to be whole and grounded and in service. And like, so that we're not like overreaching. And yeah, so that's like on a very simple, basic level. I think about, I have a good like kind of nature metaphor for this one, which is that like when there are two ecosystems that come together, there's something called an edge zone. And so that boundary between those two ecosystems is kind of like a little messy because it's just sort of this merging of things. And so I often think about how when a boundary is being pushed, like when we're coming up against an edge like that, it can feel really messy. It can be like, oh my God, what do I do here? Like, I know for me that if someone's pushing a boundary on me, I'm just like, ooh, I can really like feel that inside. And then there's the mental process that goes along with this. Like, how do I do this? Like, do I stake my ground? What all the feelings that come up, like, oh, I should do this. So boundaries are like kind of inherently challenging and kind of messy, and that's normal. That's just like how it is.
And that's normal. Can you hear me okay?
No, your voice kind of disappeared.
It kind of disappeared.
Can't hear you at all.
How's that?
There's some background noise, but I can hear you. Okay, yeah.
I was going to try to like do a stealthy switch to my microphone, but because the air conditioning is on, that's what the background noise is.
Okay.
So anyway, sorry about that. Try to do the stealth switch and blow everything up. So the thing that you said, so first of all, this idea that nature has boundaries, I think is a really important point to talk about. It's like, this is not like sometimes it feels like it's unknown territory, that there aren't, like we're always trying to figure it out ourselves, instead of that they don't exist anywhere else. It always feels kind of, not always, but I think especially at first working on boundaries, like for me can feel very panicked and new, like, oh, what do I do? And I have to handle it and feel kind of overwhelmed about the whole thing.
Right. But it's actually this normal, natural part of life. But the thing is that if we're kind of speeding through life and we're just like doing the thing, we get really disconnected from ourselves, and we get really disconnected from our needs. And so, which inform what our boundaries are, right? And so when we're doing the like moving really quickly, sped up, productivity thing we do, we like start to lose touch very quickly from what our actual needs, desires are. What are those things that are going to have us feeling like calm and stable and like able to like do shit? So, I like our society's like obsessed with productivity, right? Like we are all, even if we've done some work to pull back from it, like we are in a system that like wants us to be moving very quickly and achieving a lot and winning and doing and like all this stuff, right? Like, and so already we're in this society where our boundaries are constantly being pushed past what is actually like a natural, normal human rhythm, right? Because we have to have both. We have to have the active cycles, the productivity, great, but we also need the resting cycle and the pulling back, right? And we can't tune into that if we're just this. So like a lot of what I do in my work, like it initially, like off the bat, is help people like take that step back, literally go outside into nature and slow down so that we can start to tune in and really feel into like, oh, does this feel good or does this feel bad? Like what's working in my business right now in my life? What's not? What do I need to change? And this is all like literally, I think the core of what I do is actually about boundaries and like getting clear on what our needs are. And it shows up in a lot of places, but that's kind of the crux of it.
Yeah. I feel very similarly about money work. It's like, it's all about where are your edges, right? And feeling into those edges and being able to, put up a fence, to some degree and be like, okay, no, I'm on this side, this is me, that's you, that's the world, right? And so those edges have to be like enacted or enforced in some way.
Right. Well,
yeah.
What that brings up too is like, it's funny because this idea of boundaries and fences, like on some level, there's this way that it can feel really like rigid and I'm blocking this out. And
Yeah.
there's a way that sometimes we really do need to just like put up a strong boundary, boom. But I also would invite people to think about, like, I love Brene Brown talks about how boundaries are actually really compassionate, and how when we put up a boundary, you don't have to be a jerk about it, rather like, this is my boundary, right? And when we do that, we're actually not just serving ourselves, but serving everyone. Because what happens if you don't have boundaries, and I know everybody's experienced this, is that you get resentful, right? You do something you don't really want to do, it doesn't feel good, and you get kind of like, I wish I didn't agree to this, you get resentful, you get bitter, you get angry at people, like, and this happens subconsciously, like, all the time, right? So we when it's actually more compassionate to say, I can't do that right now, instead of doing it and then dumping your, like, bitterness on the person that kind of pushed you to do it, right?
So, or the people around you, right? It's not just that the anger comes out at that person, which it can, but it can also, like, get on your kids and your family, and that is part of, I think, the energy leak, and it, like, takes up brain space afterwards, which sometimes we talk about it in terms of, like, residue, right? This interaction left a residue, and when you walk away from someone and you feel good, like, you might remember it at some point, but when you walk away from a thing that feels bad, like, you'll spin on it a little bit, and that energy just, like, it's kind of sucked out of you, and then it's not available for you to use to do other things.
Yeah. It really is so core to so many of our interactions. I think about that in my own work. Like, if I'm doing something and working longer than I want to be, and then I just get, like, a little frustrated with my partner or my daughter, or just, like, any of these, like, little kind of just things that can happen all the time. So
yeah. I think one of the stories that we have is that boundaries are, like, bad, hard, difficult, and I think it goes along with the story that boundaries are sort of like, we don't really know how to do it. And so I know this is one, we made up some questions to talk about so that we would cover the things we wanted, and now, of course, we get on here and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this other thing. So I feel like boundaries are a little bit mysterious. Like, we like to sort of think that we don't know how to do them. Like, that's one of the things that I don't know how to have boundaries. I don't know how to have boundaries. But I think we should bust that story. Do you have ideas about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think of, there's two parts to being able to create boundaries. And I think where people maybe one of the places where people get tripped up is that there's the energetic piece of it. There's the, like, owning your own value and your own needs and your own desires, and getting clear on that and taking the time to do that. And then having the courage, essentially, to, like, say, like, no, society, I'm not doing that. No, person, I'm not doing that, right? And that is edgy, right? It's doable. It can be edgy. So there's that piece that can be a little bit like, whoa, I don't know how to do that, or it feels scary to just, like, come out and stake my claim. And there's, like, the personal work that we need to do to be able to feel confident saying that and not worry so much about if we're, like, pissing somebody off, right? So there's, like, a lot there. And then the other piece is, like, very practical, which is that sometimes, like, it's not the only solution to the problem, but honestly, clarity, goals, strategy, planning, these things also really help with boundaries, right? And one is not going to do it without the other, right? Because you can be, like, fully, like, oh, cool, I can say no to that. But then if you've actually committed to doing something and it's due, and you put 20 things on your plate, like, you might find yourself, like, I have to keep going, right? Yeah. Versus, like, if you actually have a doable plan, and you have clarity on what you're doing and what you're not doing on the big picture level, it's much easier on a day-to-day level. Like, not easy, but it's easier on a day-to-day level to say, like, actually have the space to say no, like, I'm not doing that because I'm working on this other thing, right? So I think there's two skills involved, and one of them is, like, the deep work, and one of them is the strategizing work, so that you can map something out that actually helps you uphold the boundaries you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. One of the pieces that I think about, it's like, so you were talking about edge pieces, and I feel like there's this piece about, the way I think of boundaries And this combination of boundaries and planning is like, it's like walking down a hallway that has lots of doors. And if all the doors are open, like every time you take a step, you're going to be distracted by something or some noise or like, and those are all the things, right? Those are all the things that you didn't plan for. And like people who want your time and attention that you don't want to give it to them, like all of these things. But if what you do is you know that you're going to the end of the hall and just close all the doors, right? Then it's really easy to walk from here to there, or it's much easier, right? To get from here to there.
Right.
But all of these little things, like if you don't have a vision, if you don't have this is where I'm going, it's much harder to close the doors, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all this possibility of like, oh, but maybe if I did this, it would blah, and maybe if I did this, or maybe if I did, and it's like, years ago I got basically an opportunity cost evaluator of like, what is it, can I take this thing on, given that I'm going here, right? Can I take on this project? And it's been really helpful to be like, is it in the plan? No. Okay. And there are like 10 things. Is it in the plan? No. Do you have time for it? No. Do you have money for it? No. It's like, all right, then it doesn't get enough points. It's off the agenda. And it was really easy. It became more and more easy to be like, okay, yeah, I'm just not going to do this.
Right. Totally. Well, and probably also to recognize, because there, we want to have some flexibility too, right? Like for the thing that comes along that's like, oh, wow, that's the opportunity I didn't expect, and not like have our blinders on so much that we're like, no. But if you do have some amount of blinders and then like some opportunity comes in, then maybe you actually are like, you get the clear message like, oh, I actually do need to do that right now. That's something that wasn't in the plan, but like I have space for it. I'm clear that like that feels right. As opposed to just getting distracted by everything.
Right. It can be supportive of the plan.
Yeah.
No, I'm going in that direction, and I'm it would be great if I had some partners, and partners show up and it's like, okay, how do I figure out how to have energy for this? What do I need to move? How do I get support? When it's like, this is important, or this is an opportunity that, really fits in with my heart, my desire, my ideals.
Right.
And telling the difference between that and like, there are all these things coming at you that, look great, but may not be on your path or your plan.
Right.
And evaluating the difference.
Totally. Yeah. And that's why I love working with people. And like I call what I call the roots of business, which are these, which are kind of where you like kind of create the foundations of your business. And it's like some of the classic stuff, like really clarifying your niche and your target audience and your message and your framework, the process you take people through, and like what exactly are your offers, all these things that like when those are clear, you can just be like, this, not this, not that. And it just, we'll talk about that more as we get into the four leaks, but it's such a huge piece. Like business design is a huge piece of this.
So what are the places in people's businesses where they tend to have boundaries?
Boundary issues. Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, so that there's ones that I notice that come up like again and again. And one of them I just touched on, which is like your business model, or in other words, all the things that you offer that make you money. And so what I see, like, so we'll call this one the business model one, or it's like a challenge with your offers and target audience. Because what I see with a lot of people that come into coaching with me is that they're people like they have clients, they're making money, but it's like they're offering too many different programs, or they have like a 2-month coaching program and a 4-month coaching program and a 6-month coaching program. And like, there's just like so many different things to choose from. And then the next step that's even harder after that is if they're actually marketing to 2 different target audiences. So then that's when you really get split, because you can have one target audience and over time, create more things for them and have it work. But like, for most people that I work with, when you're in that stage of business where you're like, maybe you're making 4, 5, 8, 10K a month, but you're not like, you're wanting to get to that next level. Like when you have too many offers, you're diluting your efforts. You're putting so much energy into all these different things. You're confusing people because they're like, I don't know which one to choose. And then if you 2 target audiences, you basically need 2 messages, 2 marketing strategies. It's literally double the work. It's like having 2 businesses almost. So like,
it is like it is having two businesses.
It is having two businesses.
For every, like, you know, these different avatars, you basically need, you know, a new set of emails and new messaging and all of this stuff. And so, and what we're saying is, please start with just one. Like, you know, do one, get really good at it, right? And then you can branch out into more things if that's what you want. But it gets in the way of you actually, you know, making good money and really being able to leverage and go for what you want, because you're so split, right?
And then here's where the boundary thing comes in, is people feel guilty about not serving everybody. They're like, but if I cut this one, you know, then I can't serve the people who need this thing, and I feel badly about that, right? And then that's where we just have to be like, like, is this really going to work for me? Because if it doesn't work for me, ultimately it's probably not that great for the client. Like, if it's, even if you're good at it, even if you're so good at it, if you don't really like doing it, if you, let's say you're basically working with 2 target audiences, and there's one that you love working with, and there's one that you're like, yeah, it's fine. And you knew if you could choose, you would choose the one, but you're afraid to shift your energy just into the one, because you're like, oh, I'm going to lose a quarter or a half of my business, right? Which is, you know, a legitimate fear to have. But
Yes.
the reality is that if you continue to focus on those people, like split your focus, you're not going to be able to focus enough to like increase and grow your business, and you're going to be doing work you don't love, and then the clients are going to feel that too, right? So what you have to do is like shift your energy over to the place where you're really in your sweet spot, you're in your gifts, you're working with the right people, and when you focus there, you will be able to build up the business there, because you're going to be so laser focused on talking to those people about their desires and their challenges and their needs, that they're going to start really hearing you, and you'll be able to grow that part of your business because of the focus. And then it makes it easier, because you're not like, I'm running 20 different things at once.
So I just want to say, like, I just want to reinforce this idea that your clients, your target audience will, you know, the people that you love to work with will be able to hear you, right? If there's one of the things that happens if you have multiple, you know, kind of multiple messaging, is that people get lost, right? Even if they think you're great, even if they think you're the best, they can get really lost. And this morning I was listening to one of my mentors get inspired. Inspiration is one of the things that feeds me and drives me and helps me move things forward. And he was just saying that, like, fear isn't the problem. The issue is paralysis, right? Because you can be in fear and do it anyway, right? But if you get paralyzed and you stop moving, right, then you're really stuck. And I think that's what happens to clients, where they're like, you have these 3 offerings and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to pick, and am I the right one for this one or this one? And then they just stop moving. And the thing is, most of those people will just never ever do anything, right? They just won't, especially if they're just like on your website and then they're just like, I don't know what to do, and they drop off.
Click away. Yeah. See you later. Yeah, totally. Well, it's like that. There's like age-old marketing proverb. It's not whatever. That's not the right word. It's not a proverb, but like that, you know, the confused buyer, the confused mind doesn't buy, right? You get confused, you walk away. So what you want is a business model that's very simple. It's got 1 or 2 maybe 3 offerings. You could potentially have more over time, but that all link together, right? So what people call this the sales funnel or the client pathway. It's like very obvious. You start here, and then you go deeper here, and you go deeper here. You know, it's like, that's just how it works. So can you imagine like stepping into that versus like, oh, hey, I do this, I do this, I do this. And then people are trying to have to choose, you know, between the things. And what I teach people to do in my programs is like how to take all of your wisdom and your gifts and your skills and your strengths and weave that into a process, a system, a framework, a signature system that does bring all that together in a way though that's cohesive, so that you can do all the stuff you love doing, but it's woven together in a way that's outcome based. It's like, we're going to do all these different things, but it's all in service of you having that thing you want. And then it makes sense to people, right? It's not just like this modality and that thing and this thing and that thing.
So the thing that you're saying is people don't have to give up all their gifts, right? No. They don't have to give up pieces of them and only focus on one slice or one aspect. The difference is, let's bring all of your gifts and all of your love and all of your focus and all of your support to do this thing that is actually your superpower,
Yes, that's in service of your ideal client, right? So you're pulling all that wisdom together. I call it weaving your wisdom into your framework. And then that framework, if like my framework is the Nourished Entrepreneur Framework, like I want entrepreneurs to feel nourished financially, energetically, with time, money, all that stuff, purpose. So I weave everything. I bring people into nature, and I do the structural stuff, and I do the woo-woo. So I do like all the things together, right? I pull all my gifts together, but it's all toward this one goal, so people still get it, right? It's not like a program for this and a program that. So yeah, absolutely weave the gifts together. I mean, there might be something that like, maybe you can't weave everything together, right? Sometimes we also have to remember like some things are your hobbies and some things can be, in your business, and we don't have to make our businesses, they don't have to contain like every single thing of our life, right? You want to have a well-rounded life. Maybe some of your gifts express in your community and in your family and in your passions outside of your work, right?
That's right. Not everything has to be involved in your money-making endeavor.
Exactly.
You can just have a business that does one thing. And there isn't any reason that you couldn't eventually have multiple businesses once you have team and structure and all of this stuff. But I think that it's a big mistake to try in your first venture, especially early on in your first few years, like you haven't really gone anywhere, and then trying to do all these things. It's just kind of more than.
And there's a normal, right. There's a normal phase in the early stages of business of experimentation too. So you might need to try a few things at first, but if you're at that point now where you are making money, the business is off the ground, and you're still doing too many things, and you've been experimenting and you have experience, and you can say, I like this better than this, I'm better here than I am there, then now it's time to like hone in, right? You might not be able to choose right from the start. Like you're your first year doing something, you're going to have to try this and this.
Yeah.
That's normal. I'm talking a little further down the road.
Yeah. One of the things I'd like to tell people, there's one of the business, there's been this trend the last few years. It's like, oh, you gotta nail your niche. You really gotta know who your target audience is. And that becomes important. But what I tell people is when I first started, I was just doing bookkeeping for people, right? And I would go to business events and I would be like, I do bookkeeping. And I got, I tried a bunch of different kinds of clients, right? I tried it all. And eventually I realized, which is a story that I tell people, which is about how the reason I work primarily with women is because I figured out after working with lots of different kinds of people that typically men, like this straight white men, most of them can't hear me when I talk about money. They can't hear me when I give advice. And that has to do with, patriarchy and structure and all of this stuff. And so I work with women, and I think, some of it is the peer relationship between women. And there's this openness where they'll hear me and they'll actually follow my advice, and they can actually make progress in the work that we do together. Right? And that's part of learning this whole thing about, niche and target and all of this stuff is you do have to try, right? You won't have all the answers going into it. You just won't. And every time you go to a new level or you make a change, especially a big change, you just won't have all the information. And if you get stuck in that paralysis spot, there's, you won't move forward. So fear is fine. Fear, embrace fear, do some releasing work, get loved up, get information, just don't get stuck.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. So
we'll go through the other three, huh? It's like,
in our marketing, we talked about the four energy leaks.
So one of them was business model, which we just talked about. The next one is a more obvious one, your time, right? Like your schedule. And this shows up in so many ways, but basically one thing is like not putting you at the center of your calendar, not putting your needs, your vacation time, your exercise time, your quiet time, your family time, your whatever it is you need to do, not work time.
Meals.
Eating, right. I literally put lunch on my calendar. I will forget to do it. So there's like an hour of in the middle of the day where I just like walk away from my desk and eat. And I literally would forget to put it on there. And then I get a headache.
You learned that the hard way.
What?
Like, the thing is, this is a lesson that I learned the hard way, where like I was like, oh, I could just take clients all day long. And I would put meetings on, and my clients and then my team would put meetings on if I don't actually block off time.
Right.
And
Totally.
one of the things that you learn, like, especially if you have a team and people can schedule into your calendar, you have to block time or you're never going to get there, right? You're going to spend all your time working. And so you'll never get kind of refreshed and renewed and have the energy that you need to actually do a great job.
Right. 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 So like one of the things I do with clients is we make like an ideal calendar or self-care first schedule, right? Where so the very first thing you do is like vacations, daily, weekly, monthly practices, rituals, I'll put all that stuff in the calendar first. And then put all your, and like when I want to work with clients, when I don't want to work with clients, right? Like what, and then what time of day actually, if you, like from like a rhythmic level on your body, like, are you better in the mornings? Are you better in the afternoons? Like when do you want to do, writing and visionary work and planning versus when do you want to be with clients? And so tapping into all that stuff and then creating a schedule that like actually works for your life. And then if you have that, plus you have goals, then you can start mapping out a work plan on top in the holes between your self-care essentially, as opposed to the opposite, which is usually you put the work in first and then try to squeeze in getting some exercise, right? So we just want to like flip that on its head and create the boundary first of like what I need to be filled up. And I think people like know this, that, when we're filled up, we can serve our clients better, everything, ourselves, our families, all of it. But it's just really, it's hard to do in practice. And honestly, one of it is making the schedule. And another thing is just like being in community or amongst people that will cheer you on when you go on vacation. I had a client say to me the other day, like, the reason I work with you, Julie, and another business coach is because you make me go on vacation. I was like,
yeah,
I love that. Like we got up, like her assignment from her last call was like, you need to put 10 days of vacation in your calendar. And like, she just did it and she like feels amazing. Right. So, I mean, I am 100% certain that when we do that, the work on the other end of that, after we take time for that ebb and that slowing down and the space for ourselves, then we actually like can do so much more work, higher quality work when we're rested. So we have to just like, that's just a big leaky boundary place. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but like with the pandemic and the revolution and our fucked up government, all this crazy shit that's going on in the world is like, it's super stressful, right? And so what's happening right now in particular is that it, like, even if you already had like boundaries and then what's happening in the world right now, what it does, it's like this perfect storm. It's like there's all this external stuff going on. There's the what do I do in my business kind of stuff, like, oh, do I need to change my offers, or like how do I market with integrity, or like how do I be anti-racist in my business, all these like questions. And then there's the oh, am I gonna homeschool my kids? Like there's all these like additional stresses right now, right, that are like really decreasing our bandwidth. And then on top of that, so there's like low bandwidth, and then but we're dropping our boundaries right now because maybe like you're like you want to really serve your existing clients because there's like a little bit of fear that people might disappear. So you're kind of overgiving with clients or something, or you're taking on work that's like not quite aligned. But you're like, I just want to make sure I got the money, so you're doing stuff that's like feeling a little bit off purpose. So there's this combination of reduced bandwidth, but and also reducing boundaries, when actually when we have lower bandwidth, we need to increase our boundaries. So if you're feeling crappy right now, they're with good reason, we're just in this moment that's like super challenging, and that's happening all over the place, that dynamic I just explained. And so
this is a once in a lifetime thing that, right? And I mean, the last time we know about this, it happened 100 years ago, like literally actually once in a lifetime, like thing that's happening. So, and many people don't live through this, right? So we don't have a lot of skills. We don't have a lot of living memory of what happened and what's, what do we need to do? And that there was a little distraction. I just want to name that. My sweetheart is responsible for getting us lunch today, and was coming in to bring me some pizza from home.
oh, awesome.
So I just wanted to claim that. I know it can be distracting and be like, what's happening? But we have a system. So speaking of, boundaries and energy, we have a system for who's going to provide what meal on what day and what time, so that I can be settled in my energy about it and be like, oh, Jock's got lunch today. I don't even have to think about it, right? I can focus on what I'm doing. I can do whatever, and I, trust him to make it happen. that's a whole other thing in the conversation about partnership, because everybody knows I'm really big on partnership. So energy, like this is part of managing my energy, is figuring out how to make sure that I get food every day, at least 3 times a day. 4 times a day.
Right.
Food.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's actually a great segue. The last two, which are like super intertwined, the last two areas where the boundaries kind of tend to drop are energetic, like we don't have enough energy. So when we overgive essentially, right? And we deplete our energy. So that looks like staying on client calls a lot longer, or scheduling. That's a scheduling, but it's also energy too, right? Doing things when you don't want to do them. Or like even like packing a program with like too much stuff. It's this sense of like, I have to give more, and it's usually based in some kind of fear or scarcity, possibly some generosity too. Like, I don't want to deny that, like we can want to give things, but also there's when we overgive, there's usually a tinge of fear of like, if I don't give more, the people are going to walk away. And so that's another place where we really need to tune in closely to like, am I giving an amount to my clients that feels good to me for the amount they are paying me, which is the fourth area, which is super juicy, right? Which is money, which is like, how much are you charging for things? And those two things are so linked, because you could do something for somebody and have it feel like really crappy because they're paying you like $100 an hour, right? Or you could do that same thing for somebody and they're paying you $500 and you're like, awesome, and you love it. There might also be no price that someone could pay you to do that thing. And it's good to know, right? Like, I just don't like this. But sometimes it's actually just an issue of, does my energy output equal the financial input that's coming in? Does that feel balanced? Does that feel good? And people's, boundaries drop huge around money, and especially lately, like reducing rates or just not charging enough in general for the amount that they're giving to their clients. And we tend to undervalue our gifts and our services, right? That's just the
also, I want to say something about like, we definitely undervalue, especially early entrepreneurs undervalue their gifts and what they're doing. But there's this other thing right now, especially, there's a lot of money that's been dumped into the economy, EIDL loans, PPP loans, and there's a bunch of companies that need that to sort of stay afloat. But a lot of people are investing in things right now to bridge whatever the gap is. Right. So if you're somebody who is in that space where you're like, I'm one of these people, I'm bridging the gap. I'm like, for us, doing work around money, doing work around business planning, like revenue models. I mean, there's lots of different things depending on where you are. I have to work with service providers primarily. So, we have a specific thing that we're looking at. But in all these different industries, there are places where people need you, right? And there is plenty of money out there. Lots of money has been dumped into the economy for people to actually be doing this work. So the idea that right now nobody has any money, it's just not true. Like factually incorrect. There are people that don't have money. That is true. There are always people that don't have money. That is, true. And it changes, right? So maybe that client that you worked with before doesn't have cash flow right now. But a lot of people who maybe were struggling before did things like got big EIDL loans and stuff that they are using specifically to do things like leverage and scale up their business and make things happen and change.
Right. Or do in their personal transformation, like some kind of personal transformation work that they've been wanting to do, needing to do.
Right, and it feels urgent. Yeah, and so there is an urgency. So I don't want people to walk away thinking, oh, I have to, reduce my rates and all of this stuff in order to get anything. That is about living in this fear and panic state. Right. And so this whole thing about sustainability, where we're talking about this, is like, okay, take a step back, breathe, calm your limbic system, right? Come down from that incredible intense high, right, that we get on when we're in fear, and look at these pieces of what's going on, and do some planning and take some actual steps, and don't get all
yeah, totally. And this is like why I'm so excited that you're part of Nourished, because I'm already obsessed with creating meaningful financial goals and mapping out our profit plan and like getting really like hardcore into that stuff. And then now with you joining the team,
that's stuck. I'm sure she'll come
Team,
right
it's like, no. Are you having, am I back?
back. Mine is fine. You're back now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just got that unstable internet thing. Sorry. Yeah. So I was just saying, I'm excited to have you because you bring us a deeper layer of both the practical financial planning into the work and also the energetic things that we need to dissolve and move through in order to go to the next level in our businesses, like to plug up the leaks and say, here's where I am, here's where I'm going, this is what my services are worth, and be able to like map that out on a practical level, and then also do that internal work to be like, yes, this is what my services are worth and I can charge this, you know?
Yeah, and being able to stand in that. I mean, one of the issues is I just was working with someone recently who said, oh yeah, I mapped out this program. She's never sold programs before, and she was like, it's $1,500, and she's like, but I just enrolled friends in it, and I charged them $250 for it. And I was like, it's like this kind of thing, our inability to stand in that thing that we know. So so she knows the program is worth $1,500, right? But she made a choice to undervalue herself because of that fear of, oh, people won't pay. Right. And, and some of them won't pay, but if you really, part of the work is like being able to stand and say, look, this program is $1,500 and have no charge on it. Right. And have that not like rock your world every time this comes up.
And that again takes both the practical side, designing something specifically for your people that you know that is going to be awesome and that's like a really high quality thing. And then also the energetics of being able to, like you said, just stand in it and know your own, the value of the work that you're offering.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm really excited to be part of Nourished. You have a whole team. Will you tell us a little bit about your team and what's happening and all that?
Yeah. So what we're doing, so Nourished, folks can go look on my website. There's a lot of info about it there. And a webinar this Tuesday where I'm going to go through the whole Nourished Entrepreneur framework. So we'll put the link for that in the comments. You're all welcome to attend that on Tuesday. So you can learn a lot more, but the long and short of it is it's a 6-month immersive community coaching experience with, where we are helping women transform a business that drains them into a business that sustains them and nourishes them, right, on all of those levels. And so we're, like the big focus is like helping you slow down, set those solid boundaries, and then create offers that are rooted deeply in your gifts, right? And that you feel like so excited to bring forth into the world, to shift that business model so that it's like working for you and not working against you, and just make things more easeful. So we have, it's a combination of private and group coaching. We've got Briana doing money mindset every month with folks. And then someone on her team of coaches doing one-on-ones with people. And then I'm on kind of like business strategy and design and doing, a lot of the coaching. And then we also have
and I'm really excited about this too. Keep going. We haven't even talked about that yet.
We have an in-house branding team. So we are working with, okay, so if you look at my website, it was just redesigned by these awesome women from Bold Woman Brands. And what they bring, and this is so cool because this is also a boundary thing. I'm like, you know what? For years, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do the money mindset. I'll do the messaging. I'll do the marketing. And like really where my gifts are in business strategy, right? And I could totally like do some of that other stuff. But for this program, I was like, I'm bringing all the people to the table, and I'm going to focus on my expertise, and I'm going to have Briana focus on hers, and then Bold Women Brands, they get to bring the messaging, copywriting, and verbal and visual branding and marketing strategies to the table, so that and they're awesome. They have like an amazing, and they are like not your typical branding and marketing agency. Like they're very tuned into like your how you can bring your full identity into your brand identity and really market in an authentic way that is like not cookie cutter at all. Yeah, they're awesome, super cool, and with a great team. So you get, so like if you do you can have like hours of done for you services with these folks also. So I've really tried to make it like one-stop shopping, which I know can be really helpful in this time of limited bandwidth. And I gather really awesome women. I've been gathering communities of women for years and retreats and programs, and they're always incredible people. And so who end up falling in love with each other. What?
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have gotten the most out of when I've done programs, like the program stuff is really awesome, but also it takes a community and community support to really move you forward. And the community that Julie is connected to is just incredible people. Like they're just amazing. And I felt like as a speaker, I felt so nourished, even just in the conversation with the people who were there. And yeah, and the thing about the everything in one place, it's like, it's so easy to get distracted to be like, oh, do I want to do money work? Do I want to do branding work? And like having like, everything is one place. It's just going to get handled. And for me, again, it's something that like, this just calms my nervous system and it's like, it's going to be handled. And yeah, I like it when things are just handled. Like my lunch.
And sister support, like circle of business support, always important. But I talk a lot about growing your ecosystem, your business ecosystem, like not just going it alone, but the people, the systems, the processes, and the people that make up the ecological web of your business, right? Because you need to be in your lane, and then you need all these other folks to like help support you and move you along the path. And some of that's like, you know, hiring a coach, and some of that is just like having colleagues, having business, I call them biz sisters, to like do to like bounce the ideas off of, and to call up when you're like, fuck, this thing's happening, I need some support here. Hey, can you, I just had a woman in my personal mastermind group just like read my whole webinar and like give me suggestions on how to like cut it down. I'm like, that is like an amazing thing to have, right?
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of friends that you make as part of when you join a business community like this. And that part is like, you know, those old, I always think those old credit card commercials, it's like priceless. Like you cannot put a price on community, you know, you just can't. I know it's so cheesy, but I still think of it. It's like, you cannot put a price on community. And it is so necessary right now in this like wobbly world of like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? But like, at least we're grounded in a circle. At least we have our people and a lot of wisdom and a lot of creativity, and we can just like move with the punches, right? Like we can figure out what needs to happen and do it. I'm not like big on like guarantees, like you're going to triple your business in 6 months. Like that's not like, I mean, you could, but like, that's not really, I'm really more about like, how are we going to move this forward together and create what you want to create in your life from like, again, from like the money. Yes, for sure. But the health and the life and the time and all the other pieces as well. And then having like a group of people that are like, yes, that, and we're all supporting each other to move to live like that. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So that link, we're putting juliewolkcoaching.com, right?
Yeah, and so Julie Wolk Coaching, that's my website, but then if you do /webinar, you can go sign up for my webinar.
Yeah, I really recommend that people go and sign up for the webinar, even if you're like, oh, I don't know, program, whatever. So 2 things. One, I would say, if you're nervous about money things, you're like, this, you know, whatever. One of the things that's important in dealing with money is to be able to say yes and say no. So if you're worried about any kind of pitch, it's important to be able to go through pitches and to be able to get like the information and still be able to be grounded in yourself. And that actually gives you money skills, you know, outside of all of this other stuff. The other thing I would say is Julie's amazing. And you know, you're listening to her talk here today, and then you can get more time listening to her talk about, you know, how she's rooting her business. And I think that's all also really important to really see how other businesses and how coaches who are successful, like Julie and I are successful coaches, successful business owners, successful entrepreneurs, how are we doing things? How are we structuring things? How, you know, to learn all these pieces. So I really want to encourage you to go and sign up and have a listen. You know, some to like see if you agree, but also like, what is there to learn? Like, what is Julie value? What is she focusing on? What is really working here about this? And really see what you can learn, and and see if you want to dive in with us, because this, I mean, I really love let's have everything all in one place and hang out together. So awesome. Yeah, so join us. We'll put that link in the comments, and we would love to have you.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions that come up, just, you know, I'm in the Facebook group, so, you know, you can find me.
And so you can ask Julie questions. You can ask us, you know, Julie questions. You can ask me questions. And we have Jacqueline, who some of you have interacted with, who supports the Facebook group in general, and who will like collect your questions and possibly get back to you about stuff. So Yay.
Awesome.
Thanks for hanging out with us. And next week, we will be doing releasing obstacles to sales. We'll be talking about sales and sales calls and releasing our mindset and obstacles to actually making more money.
Yeah.
That'll be next Wednesday at 10:30, I think. Wednesday the 19th. So I will see you there. There's the event in the Facebook group. So if you're here, you can poke around, make sure you add yourself so that you can get a calendar invite and join us next week. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Briana.
Yeah, thank you.